Welcome to the Hello Sunday podcast with me, Nikki Hayden. This is the podcast that discusses everything self-development, spirituality and sobriety. And it wouldn't be me without a little sprinkling of humour. Whether you are just starting out on your journey of self-development or have been exploring these topics for years, are completely alcohol-free or just curious about living a more sober lifestyle, this is the podcast for you. Each week, I'll be exploring topics in both solo episodes and with some amazing guest experts. So if you like what you hear, then please subscribe, rate and review. So with that said, let's dive into today's episode. Hello, welcome back to another episode of Hello Sunday. Back again for another week. Aren't you lucky? I wasn't sure what was going to happen this week with this episode, but you know what, guys? I've had the space and the time to record. I've always got the motivation. I always absolutely love doing these episodes. But this week was a good week. I was able to balance my time and really just get everything done that I wanted to. So we're back with another episode. How are you all? I hope you're all really good. I hope you're enjoying this beautiful weather that we're having in the UK at the moment. And I hope you all had a lovely Mother's Day. I didn't say that last week, did I? I probably should have looked ahead at the calendar when it was going to be released and said that. But yeah, it came out on Mothering Sunday in the UK. And I know not everybody celebrates. I know not everybody is a mother or has a mother or is in contact with their mother. And it can be a real, triggering day. But for those of you that did, I hope you had a lovely day. We actually I went down to Birmingham to visit my family. Went to see my nan in the care home on Saturday. And then on the Sunday, took my parents out for a meal, which was really nice. It was a beautiful day, wasn't it? And yeah, I just had a nice drive back to Leeds in the car, singing at the top of my lungs, listening to podcasts. It sounds crazy, but actually, since we've had the dog, those kind of long drives, in fact, that's the first one that I've done on my own to Leeds. I've been to other places, but that's the first one. Sorry, not to Leeds, to Birmingham. But those long car drives, or car drives in general, even if it's just 20 minutes down the road, are where I tend to now listen to podcasts and I guess just have like some space and my own thoughts. Like, don't get me wrong. The dog is no way like a child. It doesn't need, constant 24/7 attention anymore. He's a lot more settled. Still needs a lot of care and training and stuff. But yeah, he's by no means, pulling on my attention like a child would. But I do feel that a lot of the time I just don't have that kind of mental spaciousness because we've got quite a routine now. There's always something to do. I've been working really late. I've been working a role in the US. So obviously time zones have meant that kind of working over in the evening. So yeah, it's just been quite a lot. And that drive just gave me the real kind of spaciousness. And actually it was on that drive back to Birmingham that I was thinking about something that I had heard that, and I've said this before, when you kind of hear stuff in like a different way, like this is by all, no means a new concept, but it was something that I'd been thinking about for a while, and actually I just heard it said in a different way and it really landed, and I just thought I need to share this because you guys will have heard this. You'll appreciate the sentiment of what we're going to talk about today, but actually it just made me realise how important, especially in times that we're going through at the moment, where things feel a little bit heavier and there's a lot of, conflict within the world and things can feel like you're experiencing a lot more just because of social media, when actually, I guess back in like our parents' days or our grandparents' days, you could go through stuff and nobody would know. And things could be going on the other side of the world, like for instance, in the Middle East. And, we wouldn't really have much of a clue in the UK about what was going on. So it didn't feel like shared trauma or shared sadness. But I think now that happens a lot more. You also see what's going on in people's lives. So it might be that somebody that you went to school with has passed away or is super ill, or you know what I mean? There's a lot more, I guess, collective negative energy as well as a positive. But as humans, unfortunately, we are wired to, feel and sense and look out for the negative a lot more because it's a survival mechanism. It's literally our brain trying to keep us alive. It's not trying to fuck us over. It's just trying to do the right thing and keep us alive. So in essence, we are collectively probably feeling a lot more energy and a lot more negative energy. And that really impacts, it does. And so what I wanted to talk about today, and the thing that I guess have come across more recently in a more structured way, but actually I've always been aware of, is something called the law of sympathetic resonance. So the law of sympathetic resonance. And basically what that means is that vibrations and energies of things, of objects, can affect other objects. So I don't know whether everybody did this, but I always remember at school, we had tuning forks, and you would hit the tuning fork on a desk or something solid, and then you'd put it next to another tuning fork, and it would start vibrating, and it would cause the other tuning fork to vibrate at the same frequency and make the same noise. There's loads of different ways that you can test this theory, but yeah, in essence, the kind of mechanics of it are vibrations of objects set up sound waves that travel through the air, or any other medium, water, etc. And if the second object's natural frequency matches the frequency of the sound waves, it will start to vibrate in sympathy. It will start to vibrate at the same frequency. So you can do it with musical instruments, things like stringed instruments like pianos, guitars, violins, obviously tuning forks I've just mentioned. Singers can break glass. Sometimes, if you've ever seen that, where they sing at a really high frequency and it can break glass because it causes vibrations so strong that it breaks it, and it literally has an impact on that physical object. So I was wondering how this affects humans, how we as humans are affected by energies, are affected by, in essence, what's going on around us. And lately, I guess this has been quite prevalent in my life because with everything that's going on personally, not everybody is in good energy, in good vibration. I'm not expecting them to be at the moment, but I found it a lot harder to kind of pull myself back and create a really good, happy, positive vibe when I've been in and around that energy quite a lot. And what I found is I'm a lot more helpful as a person, as a resource, as a support to people when I'm not kind of in it and around it all the time. Otherwise I start getting sucked into that same frequency. And like I say, I'm not by any means saying that anybody shouldn't feel sad, shouldn't feel negative, shouldn't feel angry, like completely. With some of the things that are going on at the moment, it would be crazy not to. But equally then, that support network around them, if they end up feeling exactly the same, it doesn't help. Like a really good example of this, and actually what got me thinking about it on the drive home on Sunday, was in the care home that my nan is in at the moment. There's a lot of very old, I say very old, she's 97 this year, but she's very, with it still. She's quite sprightly in terms of her energy a lot of the time, unless she gets sick, like she's been quite ill this year. But generally speaking, like she refers to people as old dears, even when they're, in their 80s. So she's got a decade on them. But there's a lot of really sleepy people. A lot of them, I wouldn't say they're really sick because it's not a nursing home, but they're just, they're old and they've got a lot less energy. And a lot of them will sleep in their chairs downstairs or, say crazy things. And it's just, the environment. But actually what we've noticed is she is starting to become a lot more negative and a lot more brought down by being around that energy. There's a lot that goes on there that's really positive. They have like shows and entertainers and the staff are amazing. But actually when I went there on Saturday, I started to feel myself get pulled into this like spiral of negative thinking. Like she was saying, like, oh, wouldn't you be fed up sitting in this environment all day? And I was trying to talk around, and then after a bit I thought, I've got to get up and walk around and get out of this room just for a minute. She was in like the shared communal kind of living space, because I could just feel myself like not being able to bring my energy up to kind of, try and get that on over to her and to help her. So I took a little walk upstairs, went and got some stuff out of her room for her and kind of give myself a little head wobble. And then when I came back down, I've completely changed my attitude, really, just looked at the positives and was talking to her about really nice stuff. And then by the end of the kind of 2.5, 3 hours that I was with her, my mum came in and she was like, oh God, she seems in a really good mood today. And we were like doing her nails and, there was a lot more laughter, and it was crazy how we'd both impacted each other's energy, even without words. Like, she was talking to me, but like a lot of it was just her demeanor. And when I got there, she was like crying and upset and really miserable. And, that affected me. But then just as much as that negative affected me, the way that I got myself into that positive energy affected her. So that's one example. And then I think, a lot of other examples for me this year have come from like a work context. If I'm working with people that are solutions focused and driven and want to make things happen and want to make things work, then I will absorb that energy. I'm like a sponge. Whereas actually, if I've been working with people, I've had a few calls within my network this year, people in the same field as me that are really struggling and find it really difficult. And they've just used the session as like a venting, ranting session, which is fine. Like, we've all got to, have a sounding board. But I've come away from some of those calls just like, oh God, I feel very like heavy and drained and just not good at all. And I know a friend of mine is currently having this experience as well in a work context with somebody who's, super draining, and they've got a commitment to work with them, but actually it's really taken its toll on their energy and their mindset. Whereas actually on the flip side of that, engaging with my coach this year and investing in somebody that is literally paid to be not necessarily positive, but to be objective and to see things, to find solutions and help me find solutions. And then the magic call that I was talking about that I did with Gina Swire, one of my other mentors, a few weeks ago, where she helped me work through some sticky solutions or sticky challenges and find solutions with like the dog and just some other things that I was kind of, toying with in my mind, where I couldn't see the way out or the solutions, because I was so deep in that like negative energy of just seeing the problems. And then I'd been kind of just ranting and venting to people around me rather than trying to think, okay, well, this is where we're at. This is the situation. What can we do to fix it? Or what are the solutions? So it really does impact. Like, if I go onto a call with Rebecca, my coach, I remember a few weeks ago, we'd had a really, really tough week. We'd had all of the stuff going on with the family. My husband had, I think I mentioned it on the podcast, a really big, massive contract deal fall down in a day, completely out of his control. It was a legal issue. And then there was also a job offer that was related to that was then reneged. We just had so much stuff thrown at us from a financial perspective. And I just got to a point where I was like, I can't do this. This is too much. Like, I felt heavy. And I got a coaching session with Rebecca, and we have an agreement that unless it's major, neither of us will cancel. We'll show up as we are. And I got onto the call, and I'd, evidently been crying, and she could see that. And I just thought, right, I'm just going to let her know what's going on, because there's no point in trying to go on with a brave face. And so I did. And by the end of that call, nothing had changed in my 3D reality. Like, nothing had changed. The job offer was still reneged for my husband. The contract had still gone down. We'd still got all the issues with, family health scenarios. At that point, my nan was also super ill, and I was getting pulled into, the support side a lot more. Not pulled into, obviously, keen to do that, but like, it was another factor. And nothing had actually changed. But because I talked it through with somebody whose energy was positive and they were solutions focused, and they were really, really, able to just say, okay, let's take a breath and take a step back. These are the things that you can do. I came away feeling like I'd got so much more options, and so many more options, and so much more, just clarity, that it was great. So that energy really does affect other people. And I think we're so quick, and so there's so much around at the moment. And I've done an episode on this myself around cutting out toxic people and negativity, and you don't need that in your life. And actually, we all need to look at ourselves. We all need to, going back to that episode a couple of weeks ago around radical responsibility, we all need to be looking at what impact are we having on other people? Where is, our head at the moment? And this isn't to say that you shouldn't be sharing your problems and your challenges with those around you and your friends, family and loved ones. It isn't to say that you shouldn't ever vent or rant to people. I mean, I would probably caveat that with maybe see where they're at the time. Me and one of my best friends, Tony, will always say to each other, like, have you got the space for me to talk about this at the moment? Have you got? And sometimes it's can you just give me until this evening? I'm in the thick of something. Or I have, but I won't be able to respond until later. Or actually, yeah, go for it. And I think that's really important, that you don't just dump on people. But equally, like, if you are just down that hole of woe is me and this is hard and things aren't good, what impact is that having on everyone around you? If there are challenges and problems in your life, yes, of course, you can feel like shit about it. But also you've got a responsibility to, try and raise your vibe and to get into a bit more of a positive mindset and try and think about the solutions rather than just going over the problems. Because actually that isn't helping anyone, it's not changing anything. There's also a really, really interesting study done on this. And I'd kind of heard about like the effect of like collective, I guess kind of like vibration raising exercises and, group For those of you that are regular listeners to the show, or maybe you know me personally, you won't have been able to get away without hearing me talk about Simprove. Simprove is a scientifically backed, water-based probiotic drink. You drink it daily and it has been scientifically proven to help with things like bloating, IBS symptoms, pain. It was actually a dietitian friend of mine that introduced it to me last year, and I honestly wouldn't be without it now. It's helped with my energy, with my bloating, it's helped with my immune system, and also things like my skin. The list is honestly endless. Now, I have got a code for you. So if you'd like to try Simprove, you can get 50%, that's a massive 50% off your first 3 month subscription by going on to simprove.com and putting in the code Nikki50. That's NIKKI50, or clicking the link in the show notes. I guess meditations and mindfulness and stuff like that. But this is wild. This experiment is absolutely wild. So I'm going to read some of it from an article on the New York Post, just because I can't remember. I've got to do it justice, and I can't remember all of the details. But basically, it was a study that was 17 years in the making, and it demonstrated that a widespread practice, in this case meditation, can have have an impact on the population, even on those that aren't partaking in it. So this isn't just an impact on those who are actually doing the meditation, it's the wider collective, it's the people around. So like people in, a city or a country can partake in a group or a widespread mindfulness and meditation practice, and it can even impact those that are not interested and not doing it. So it says, published in the World Journal of Science, there is research that is the longest and most comprehensive of dozens of studies that have tested the benefits of meditation, and it's known as the Maharishi effect. And that was named after Maharishi Mahesh Yogi, who pioneered the research and founded the Maharishi International University and Transcendental Meditation in Iowa. And that was where the study took place. So basically, it's a study about how they measured the baseline average stress level in the US during a period before mass meditation began. from 2000 to 2006. So they did a 6-year study on kind of baseline stress levels, and they counted tens of thousands of stress-related tragedies. So there was nearly 15,500 murders, nearly 93,500 rapes. Sorry if any of these words are triggering, by the way. I will put a trigger warning at the start. 86,348 child and adolescent accidental deaths. It was widespread. And then in the years that followed, in between 2007 and 2011, researchers followed a group of 1,725 participants who meditated every day. So they meditated every day for that period. And it was a 5-year period. And the data showed that stress-related incidents overall, so not just within that group, but overall, had significantly decreased, whilst a mere fraction of the US, the approximate square root of 1% of the population, meditated together. So there was a tiny, tiny fraction of people that were all meditating together. And yet it managed to, or there was a correlation between them meditating and a significant decrease in stress-related incidents. As the group's meditation began and continued, the occurrence of murders, rapes, assaults, robberies all trended downward. And there's a graph, if you want to go and look at it, it's on the New York Post, where you can see the drop in these horrific events. When the 5 years were over and the study entered its post period from 2012 to 2016, the same stress-related incidents began to trend upward again, and quite suddenly as well. So when group participation plummeted in 2013, so after the study, it took just 1 or 2 years before the beneficial effects wore off and stress-related tragedies spiked. So, I mean, look, there is obviously people out there that will say it's a coincidence, that has no bearing, and actually it was all unrelated. But isn't it weird that meditation is scientifically proven to reduce stress, anxiety, chronic pain, depression, lower, certain heart-related diseases, and help with sleep. And yet in that time, it seemed to have a collective effect on people, wider reaching than just the people that were actually taking part in the study. Like, that to me is absolutely wild. There's so much more on there, but apparently they concluded, so the study concluded, or the person that was kind of reporting on the study concluded that they received a $75 million grant from a foundation to conduct the study. And he said that it's a lot of money, but the savings from the 10% reductions in crimes would save $200 billion, not to mention all of the savings from reducing other sources of stress in the country. So in essence, they were not only saving people from stress and crime, but actually saving hundreds of billions of dollars because of the, all of the domino effect that had on the wider population in the US. And there's loads of studies like that. You can go out and research them. I'm sure you don't want me citing scientific studies at you for the whole episode, but there are loads of studies. There's something to do with, so Lakme, who does the 111 approach. I think I spoke about her last week. I've only recently just discovered her work, but she's great. And she talks about how World War II, there was actually a collective meditation and mindfulness practice that happened. I don't think it even happened at the same time every day, but it happened throughout Europe, I think. And there was a direct correlation between that and the end of World War II. So it's just so interesting. And I just think this is science in terms of we are all energy. There is absolute scientific evidence that vibration affects vibration, whether that's in, an inanimate object or in a human state. And you know what it's like? We've all been in rooms with people where, we come out and we're like, oh God, I feel so negative and drained. I always remember years ago working with somebody she was an older lady. I say older, she was older than us at the time. And just so negative, so bitter, so, how would I put it? Like, always made like passive aggressive comments about what the girls were wearing, and always saw the negative side. When she picked up work, there was always a problem or a challenge, and it was never, an opportunity. And I always remember whenever she was in the office, we used to call her the mood hoover, because she would literally bring, like, hoover the mood up. We could all be having the nicest time, and let's say she'd been on a client meeting in the morning and came in the afternoon. That afternoon would be like absolute polar opposites in terms of how the energy was in that room. And it was as a direct effect of her just negative energy and just, the real kind of like draining effects. So look, I'm not sat here saying we all have to be positive and like cheerleading and, going around with rainbows coming out of our buttholes, and there will be days like that, no doubt. But having understood the actual effects of sympathetic resonance and really understanding how it's affected me as a person, I am so much more aware now of my energy and the responsibility that I have to take the energy that I need reciprocated into a situation. Look, there's going to be times, like I've just said with Rebecca, my coach, where it's not that it's not on me to bring that energy. That's not fair. She doesn't just want me crying on every session, but I have to show up completely authentically in that moment. And nobody's asking you to fake anything. But also, if like, there's been times when I've had to apologize to my husband because I know that I'm just in a downward spiral of, black hole, not seeing the solutions, not even wanting to see the solutions. And I've just thrown all that at him when he's either called me or he's come home. And actually that is, that's not fair. We're in a partnership, and yes, he's there to support, but me just throwing negativity at him and then just kind of, like a hand grenade and then just leaving the situation, how does that make him feel? By the way, if you can hear any noises, I'm gesticulating a lot with my hands on this episode, so I hope that you can't hear. Sounds like I'm karate chopping the air sometimes. So yeah, I just found it so interesting that there's actual, evidence to back this up. It isn't just a woo-woo phenomenon. And even if it was, to be honest, like, I've seen evidence of it in action. So it doesn't really matter, does it? But there is definitely science to back it up. And I think we all need to take responsibility for our energy, and also take responsibility for, if you do feel constantly drained and have, the life sucked out of you by certain people, then maybe they aren't meant to be in your life, or maybe you're not meant to work with them, or maybe you're not meant to be in and around them a lot. I know there's certain instances when maybe it's family, like my nan, I'm not going to not go and see my nan because she can be neggy, but then it's my responsibility in that moment to try and change that mood and to not let it bring me down, because I could have quite easily just, felt negged out and then gone back to see my parents on the evening and took that with me, and then it affects, all of us. So yeah, I think taking that responsibility for your own energy and noticing when other people's energy is affecting you. Energy is one of our most important currencies. Like, it's probably one of the most important things that we've got in our lives. It carries us through challenges, and it literally is, our essence day to day. So we've all got to take responsibility for how we're showing up. So I hope that resonated. I hope you enjoyed it. I will aim to be back again next Sunday. So I'll see you when I see you. Have a great week. Thanks for listening. You can find us on Instagram at HelloSundayPod, or you can email us on hellosundaypod@outlook.com. Have a great week.